In today's clip, I'm going to address whether there's a minimum amount before one should start investing, and the reasons behind my opinion. Heyo, Senpak here. Another day, another month, and a new year that still kind of feels like the old one, frankly. But hey, if you're here for one reason or another, please feel free to comment, like, and subscribe. Oh, and tell your friends so this whole social media thing can do its thing. Yeah, okay, so I've heard this question in the personal finance space quite a bit, and my answer to this question is actually not even the consensus in my own household. So, should there be a minimum before one starts investing, and how much does one need to get started? My wifey actually thinks that there's no such floor, and people should start as soon as they have any extra money. My opinion is that one should actually wait until one has at least like $1,000 saved up. That's outside of your emergency fund, by the way. I'll give you my wifey's reasoning and then mine, and reach the conclusion of obviously why I am slightly more correct. Okay. So my wifey's point of view, I think, is relatively straightforward, right? Most people learn by doing, and the sooner you start, the sooner you can start learning. Also, starting as a beginner, playing with smaller amounts of money won't hurt as badly, right? Say you start with $100 invested in some initial stock picks that you picked for yourself, which is the most common type of how people start. And let's say the one that you picked loses 25%. Sure, it hurts, but it'd only be a loss of $25 empirically speaking, right? Nothing that can't be made up by your next paycheck, or at least I hope so. Also, my wife points out that this is the way that she did it, and she's been able to weather the storm of the market, in the last dozen years that she's been in the market, and she's slowly and steadily added to her portfolio and developed, really her own sense of investing strategy over this period, right? And then there's my point of view. I think you should have at least $1,000 mainly because if your amount of disposable income is only between like $100 to $1,000 range, I just think there's more efficient ways to increase your net worth, right? And I'm not just talking about net worth in the financial sense. I'm talking about net worth as in like what's up in your brain, right? Mainly through self-education. If I had $100, I'd spend that first $100 on books, right? Don't worry about buying any specific stock. Buy books on investments. That's the kind of long-term strategy that I would use, right? Because after all, investing is not a game in itself, right? I know people can view it as that, but in its essence, trying to grow your money, I think is really extremely important, right, to your well-being, right? So to tackle such an immense task, why wouldn't you want to be well-informed first, right? Obviously, if you're deep in the personal finance or, here in the financial independence, retire early space, maybe you've had enough education. But again, I still argue, going back to the books that inspired these communities is always better than simply listening to other people's advice, right? Including mine, right? Because these are secondhand, right? And not truly synthesized by you yourself. Now, of course, I want to go back and actually address why I think my wifey's philosophy in this aspect does work for her, but I doubt it's applicable for most people, right? For one thing, if one starts off with a larger amount, yes, the losses will hurt more, right? But that's actually the point. I think I wanted to hurt more, right? Imagine you're playing with extremely low-stakes poker, like with pennies on the table. Nobody ever folds in that game because everyone just plays every hand because there's no sense of risk. That's literally not how the game is played at all, with higher stakes when you're playing for, say, rent money or food money, right? To me, investing is similar, right? I actually want the investors to feel the pains of their mistakes, especially earlier on. Now, I'll give you a personal example, right? I invested $1,000 on a whim on that company that said they were going to be the Netflix for movie theater going, okay? Oh boy. You know how much money that's worth now? About 2 cents, okay? $1,000 I put into it, I've lost pretty much the entire thing, right? Every day when I look at that ticker in my brokerage, and it's 99.99% loss, it's a great reminder for me to not bet on trends that I read in the news, because if you see it in the news, way too late, okay? It's a lesson that definitely means more to me, because losing $1,000, like, it hurts. This wouldn't be the same lesson if I lost just $10 or even $100, okay? So find out what that threshold amount is for you and start when, it's an amount that would actually teach you something, right? Otherwise, investing will always feel like a game rather than real life. Now, also, one of the reasons my wifey is pretty comfortable at, withstanding the ups and downs of the market is because she already has a built-in source of financial education in the form of her dad, who actually works in the space, in the finance space, right? So she can get personal advice on what to buy and have someone talk her off the ledge, trust this source, so that if your position loses 10 to 20%, you're not just going to go sell it, right? This is just not the applicable or the case for most other people, right? So if you start out without much of an education, see your portfolio drop, even if it's, not an absolute high amount, but as a percentage, you might just panic and exit and then say, hey, you know what? The stock market is not for me, right? This is, to me, the worst case scenario, because then we've turned a potential investor for life off of the correct path. So yeah, another reason why I think some education should come before investing any amount, right? Now, at the end of the day, I'd say if you think you're relatively well informed, then yes, you can start investing at any level. But for most people, I would say the path really should involve some level of self-education, okay? And that's definitely worth spending your first 100, even maybe a couple of $100 on. Because of the type of mental returns that you get in the context of the scope of a lifetime, totally worth it. You cannot underestimate the amount of knowledge that you can get. Now, I think there's definitely a limit to it, right? I'm not saying go take some of these stupid courses that you see, like where people are telling you how to day trade. That is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about reading the classics, like whatever the top 2 books that Warren Buffett recommends, go read that before you buy any stocks, okay? Again, this is all just my opinion. Feel free to tell me yours, and in the meantime, check out some of my other clips on the corners. Cheers.